Hey, hi Pallav. So I think we are live now on our YouTube channel. So I think just give me 30 seconds and then we'll get started.
Sure, absolutely.
Perfect. So Pallav, you're dialing in from Bangalore?
Yep, Bangalore is home now for the last over a decade.
Awesome.
Couldn't be far
Nice.
away from the best cluster of talent and the heart of all the tech innovation happening in India, or most of the B2B SaaS happening in India apart from Chennai.
Absolutely, man. That's the reason why I also shifted from Bombay to Bangalore. Anyways, I've also got the official confirmation from my team that we are live. Uh,
Okay,
so great to have you here, Pallav.
glad to be here, Srini, and thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Okay, let me start with a quick round of introductions for the unversed and uninitiated. I'm Srinivasan Narayan. I am the co-founder and CEO of Goodmeetings. Goodmeetings is an online video platform that helps sales guys sell 10x better on video. Think of us like the go-to platform for remote sales, for video-based sales. We build all the toolkits, all the tool sets that are required to help sales guys sell effectively on video at scale, right? And that's the only thing you will be hearing about Goodmeetings in this session. So we've parked that now. Uh, and I have with me Pallav Nadani. But before I actually, give a quick round of introduction about him, I wanted to spend a minute talking about what is this session, what is Road to SaaS, which rolls up, basically this session is part of Road to SaaS. So what is Road to SaaS all about? So fundamentally, when we as a team started building Goodmeetings, I realized that there were a lot of gaps in terms of understanding the sales processes and the GTM motions that are required to basically build a product from India and sell it into the world. Uh, and Basically, the way things evolved in our company, we first started from India and then started selling into the US, and that's when I realized that the playbooks necessary to sell into the global markets is very, very different from the playbooks that you build to sell into India. And it applies for every kind of company, whether it is a bootstrapped small company, an angel funded company, or a proper VC backed company. And that is when, we as a team decided to kind of, in many ways, open source our learnings and also learn in public. I met a lot of interesting people, both in India and the US, who are many steps ahead of us in terms of building a successful B2B SaaS business from India for the world. And that's how Road to SaaS was launched, to basically feature these guys and get essential nuggets of wisdom from them, get the essential frameworks that are necessary to build kick-ass products from India for the world. And today I'm really excited to have with me Pallav Nadhani, someone I've known for quite some time now. I met him long back, and I'm sure Pallav doesn't remember it, in 2009-10, when he came to give a talk at Intuit. And I was blown away by his insights, by his entrepreneurial journey. Back then, he was building Fusion charts. And at some level, I think amongst the many, many seeds that are planted in my mind to take the plunge of entrepreneurship, I can unabashedly say that, Pallav's talk was one of them. So thank you, Pallav, for that session. And for some time, I have been trying to, kind of get him here. Uh, because I have post that, I again met Pallav multiple times while building my SaaS company. And every time I have met him, I have been energized, illuminated, and motivated to do something. He's always given me some nuggets of wisdom that I had not thought about earlier. So I was really, kind of hoping that Pallav can actually, kind of feature in this series. Finally, Pallav was able to take time out. So really, really, privileged and happy to have you here, Pallav.
Glad to be here, and thank you for such a kind introduction, Srini. I hope I can live up to the promise in the session now.
Now, a small bit of formal introduction about Pallav for the unversed and uninitiated, and I know there will be a very small group only, if at all, because all B2B SaaS enthusiasts know Pallav well. Pallav basically is a storied entrepreneur. He's had multiple exits. His first company, Fusion Charts, he bootstrapped it and ran it for 17 plus years, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
28,000 global customers, 750,000 plus developers, staggering numbers, Pallav, right? And before he actually exited that company. And I think Pallav knows B2B SaaS like the back of his hand, especially certain aspects like bottom up growth, how to quickly raise to 250K ARR. And that's the kind of topic we are going to discuss today at length for the next 1 hour. So welcome, Pallav. Great to have you here again.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So Pallav, let's just jump into, jump into the business side of things without further ado. Before I actually, kind of get into the whys, hows, etc., just to get the definitions right so that the people here understand how exactly do you define bottom-up growth, right? In your mind, what exactly do you mean by bottom-up growth? The topic that we are going to talk about is how to use bottom-up growth to reach 250K ARR, right? What exactly do you mean by bottom-up growth?
Right. So in my case, bottom-up growth or bottom-up adoption is where we build a product based on what the market needs. We build a great website. We distribute it using the internet, whether it be the product as well, which is typical of SaaS right now. But when I started in 2001, the word SaaS was not invented. And we use the mediums on internet, which is the campaigns and the channels, to reach to our prospective customers. These customers come to our website, try our product, swipe the credit card, buy it, and in more than 90% of the cases, we never even have to talk to them minus customer support. So there's no outbound effort of going and hunting, hey, who's going to be my future customer, or who should I go and contact, and then trying to convince them. So here the product experience is what they experience before they even start having a physical, or when I mean physical, a virtual interaction with a human being who's a representative of our company. That in my mind is product-led growth or bottom-up growth or bottom-up adoption.
Got it. So the growth is in many ways tied as a trait into the product itself.
Right. So you start thinking from the product first, and then you start thinking how the customer will experience the product without any human interaction. And human interaction may or may not happen in the later stages of that cycle.
Got it. By the way, guys, it's a freewheeling discussion and it's live on YouTube. So keep, kind of posting your questions. The whole idea is not to have a dialogue, but to actually, kind of have a discussion with everyone here. So if you have any questions, any thoughts, keep posting it here and I'll ensure that I ask those questions to Pallav. So that's the, as far as the modalities of the discussions are concerned. Great, Pallav. I do understand because I know fusion charts. I know some great stories about that also. And in many ways, you were doing product-led growth, bottom-up growth before it actually became a thing. So I want to go back in time and start with your origin story, right? How did you find your way into this exciting world of tech and SaaS? And what was your motivation, in other words, to get into the world of SaaS?
Right. So I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I never had the sort of goal to become an entrepreneur or do what I was doing. My core goal was to make more pocket money. I started this when I was 16. I was in my class 11. And at that point in time, you can only go to your father so many times in a month to get pocket money. And I was back in Calcutta, and cafe coffee day and bowling lanes were back in, they were in vogue, and those were expensive. So I had to figure out how to make money. I knew how to code for a long time because I've been deeply interested in computer science for a while, both from a school point of view and also just because my dad gave me a bunch of books and we had a computer at our place for since a pretty long time. So I said, okay, what can I do with code? Tried a few things, building websites and all for my dad's company. And during one of the school projects, I said, why not convert these Excel charts to modern web charts? And that at that point in time, Adobe Flash was the technology. So I coded up something. Right now, if I look at that, I'll be very embarrassed to see that chart. But V1 of that was basically me writing an article on a website, which would pay me $1 a word for writing on innovative tech plus some sort of application. It was called asptoday.com. And I tried to write as long an article as as it was possible, but they capped it at 1,500 words. So I got paid $1,500, pretty good for a 16-year-old. And then what happened is after that article was published, a bunch of people who read, they reached out to me saying, hey, can you do this modification or can you do that modification? I'll give you $50 or $100 for this. And I started realizing, hey, if enough and more people are willing to pay me for some sort of customization, rather than me doing all of those individually, why don't I sort of package it up? I didn't even know the word product back then. Said package it up, put some documentation, a rough website, and the cheapskate that I didn't even buy a domain. I just used my dad's web design company domain with a subdomain. I said, okay, let's start with that. What will happen? So put it up online, then started writing a few more articles on other websites where they would actually pay me for writing articles, where I'm promoting my product. So I got paid for my own content marketing in the initial days. So that is how I started generating some revenue early on. And that was the first wedge for me into the world of tech plus SaaS. Very accidental. What I was trying to do was make pocket money just by using my coding skills.
Very interesting, very amazing superhero origin story, Pallav. And I realized two things. One is you were actually building in India and selling into the US, earning in dollars from day one, which probably entrepreneurs in India have learned the hard way after actually encountering a bunch of stumbling blocks. The second thing is one great, kind of quote of Reid Hoffman basically, flashed through my mind when you said that you would be embarrassed with what you had built first, which is like, if you're not embarrassed with your first version of your product, you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely.
So amazing story, Pallav. Great. I think this is very interesting, which leads me to the segue of, the next phase of your growth into SaaS is I would love to spend some time to understand your initial years on Fusion Charts, and if you could walk us through, those days of Fusion Charts. Who were your customers? How did you find them? And what was the problem you were trying to solve?
Got it. So I'll have to give you some backdrop of what we are doing. So essentially, if you look at any web application today, they have dashboards. And this has been true back in the days, right from 1990s, since enterprise software was developed on-prem, to 2000 when late 1999, 2000 when things started moving online. It was still not called SaaS, and every product needed some sort of charts, every enterprise product, every product with data. But back then, what we call a charting library or data visualization toolkit or SDK today was not available. So people would do a lot of work around either around Excel charts or some other DLLs or libraries to embed charts within their applications. What we did was we provided them a very simple way to create extremely beautiful, interactive, and animated chart within their application in less than 15 minutes. So no installation, great animations, clean APIs, and get started in 15 minutes. So anybody who's developing an application which needed charts in their dashboards or their application, which is primarily developers, they would be our ICP for the product. So this could be your CRM tools, your HR tools, your quiz tools, anything of that sort. With this data, you need charts. You come to our website, get started in 15 minutes, download it, implement it, and you have your beautiful dashboards.
Awesome. So basically, you were providing DAS or a CAS, dashboard as a service or chart as a service, as they would put it today.
So chart as a library.
Library
Okay. As a service, yes.
Library as a service. Got it. So we understand what your product did. I also understand that, you probably use bottom-up growth or product-led growth from day one. If you can delve a little bit more on, how you use product-led growth to get your initial customers, and over a period of time, how product-led growth became like the heart and soul of your entire growth strategy. If you can actually talk a bit more about that, I think that will be helpful, because I think a lot of people can pick leaves out of, that experience of yours and see if they can apply it into that business model, into their product.
Sure. So again, just to give some preamble, when I was doing all of these things, I didn't know this is called product-led growth or content marketing or bottom-up adoption. Essentially, my constraint was morning 8 till 2 p.m. I'm going to be in school. After 2 p.m. I have my tuitions. Then I'll have some study time, self-study time, or sports time. So I was trying to build an engine where, with the least amount of effort and the least amount of money deployed, because I didn't have money. Anyways, the money which I was trying to make was to make pocket money for bowling and cafe coffee day. So the idea was not to reinvest, but to take money out and do that. What could I do essentially to get access to my target market, which is developers? So first thing, I started figuring out, where do developers hang out? And given that I was a developer, I knew what sites I would visit. So back in the days, there were forums. Like you have community forums today. You had community forums back then, which is developer forums. What you have like G2 today, there were similar G2s for developer websites, developer components. What you have as email newsletters today, you had similar email newsletters back then, but on a smaller scale. You had other sort of articles website, which would be focused on developers, which is again there today, like NetTutor and a whole bunch of them. And I realized that I have to be present all of there or at all of those places. So whether it's where I'm writing a content article around, hey, like I remember some of those, make your web application look like $1 million. And the entire content is how you need a pretty charts or a pretty dashboard so that your application looks like $1 million. Similarly, when I'm advertising on some of these sites, like the G2 equivalent for developers, it would be very specific about, hey, you developer, you want charts in your dashboards and you want it to look great. We'll put in those categories, we'll promote all of those. Then when Google AdWords came, we were one of the first few customers of Google AdWords in India. I think this is about 2004 or 5. We'd be present. And we knew the keyword that people were searching for this was flash charts, because people knew that, hey, this is flash-based technology and this creates charts. So we highly optimized our website for these keywords, flash charts, flash graphs, long tail of these keywords. We didn't know it's called content marketing, but we kept on writing this in our documentation and everything. Mm-hmm. So a couple of things. So this is on the how did we sort of figure those ICP and how did we reach to them. Second part of the product-led growth is how do we enable autoboarding? Again, remember, 8 till 2, I'm in school, 2 to 4 is my study time, 4 o'clock, I want to go to play sports. My customers are in US, nighttime, I can't wake up too late. So for a customer to come on the website and experience the product, right now, what we call live demos and all, we created a bunch of these live galleries for charts with different live data sets, different use cases. We created demo dashboards like sales dashboards or HR dashboard. We created great documentation, which is one of the most important thing in a developer product. How do you enable people to first come, try it out, see if this is relevant to their context, which is demos, then download it, and at the same time see the documentation saying, okay, this is how I'm going to use the product. So from his first journey, either from where he discovers us, the customer discovers us, to him landing here and seeing, hey, this seems good, the demos seem good, this is relevant to me, to then seeing the documentation or downloading a trial and starting to use. All of this does not involve any human from our side in the loop. So essentially, I created the self-serve engine, which allowed me to help them experience the product. And at one point in time, I realized that many of them are emailing me, hey, how to do this and how to do that. First, I started replying to them individually. Then I saw that, hey, some of these are repetitive questions. I added them in the documentation, but some of them would not go to the depth of documentation to find it. Then I created these FAQ section. Then also realized that, hey, why don't I create a community, host a community of Fusion charts on our own website, which is called Community Forum, self-hosted community forum. That sort of picked up a lot. So now instead of me replying to my customers, one of the customer to reply to another customer or user to another user, and which sort of helped create this community of users who were helping each other, and which sort of created this entire effect of people coming, trying, getting support without any of our involvement. So that is what I call the PLG effort. And then whatever work, we kept on doubling down on that. And obviously the purchase process and all was a separate online process after some point in time. So they could just go swipe their card. We would just get a notification. So every morning when I would wake up, I'll have X amount of sales happen last night, and you'll just feel happy about it.
Awesome. So if I have to summarize, I think your product-led growth happened in many ways because you were in school and there were constraints with regards to you sleeping early and therefore not being in a favorable time zone with regards to the US markets, right? And if I had to basically extrapolate that to today, then in many ways, the framework to think is, put artificial constraints, even if you're able to, even if, those constraints can be violated, but put those artificial constraints and ensure that everything is self-serve, and when once a user lands on a site, everything is basically kind of, can be done in an uninterrupted fashion for entire product-led growth to, kind of prosper. That's as far as onboarding is concerned. But as far as basically, even before that, have a clear idea of who your ideal customer is, and then ask yourself this question, if this is my ideal customer, where is this guy hanging online currently? And try to basically penetrate those fortresses.
Right. So online was our initial attempt. I mean, later we did print magazine events and all of that. So basically what we did is stay in the life of map. Where does this guy go eat? Can we advertise there? What magazines does he read? Which conferences does he go to? Where does he go to? Subway? Obviously we didn't do Subways because that's a very specific product, but essentially we mapped out this, like, what does the life of a developer look like? Where does he hang out? And again, there are different cohorts in that. Open source developer would hang out at a different place. An enterprise developer would hang out at a different place. A student developer will hang out at a different place. And we tried different sort of campaigns, channels, combination of all of that. and also enabling word of mouth, which I can cover a little bit. But word of mouth is not something you can force. It's just that when people love your product or your service, then they start talking about it. But one of the hacks we did initial days, sort of to get the understanding of what's working and what features do we need is, so if our product was priced at $15 per user or $35 per user, like only two pricing, unlimited. So no per year. This is not the subscription. We're talking about 2002. But for that, I would go like a bunch of customers out, implement our product for free in their products to get an understanding of where our API is falling, where it's not good, what kind of limitations. I would have given tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of free coding personally done by myself for a $35 license to be able to understand what's working, what's not working in my own product.
Got it. So in many ways, as they say, give things for free first to understand, where the market is, what is working, what is not working before starting to charge people.
A slight caveat to that, I didn't give my product for free. I'd still charge them $35, but
Okay.
tens of thousands of dollars of free implementation hours, like putting my
Okay.
product within there. So they still paid me for my product. I mean, that $35 made on the product, but it gave me understanding of, hey, where is my product really working and what are the limitations of my product in an environment like theirs.
Got it. We also spoke about the fact that you guys wrote a lot of content, right, before content marketing became a thing. And there's a very contextual, relevant question coming in from Khalid Jain. He asks, how did you win the SEO war? How much did content help?
So here we have the advantage of being a dinosaur. I mean a dinosaur, we started early when content marketer as a designation was not there. So we wrote authentic content, not focused on search engines. Three things which went right. One, we wrote on all the sites which were developer focused. And that point in time, most sites would accept a lot of articles. And again, our industry was fairly nascent at that point in time. Be it about data visualization, charting, even web applications like Web 2 was just like sort of coming up. So we'd write a lot of content around that. So that sort of became some of those became seminal and evergreen pieces of content. So when Google search algorithm would pick those up, those would come at a very high ranking. Second, we knew exactly what our keyword is, which is flash chart, flash graphs, and a long tail like column chart on web, flash column chart. And we'd have a lot of this in our documentation, which is like deeply indexed by our own website. And whenever somebody references flash chart or flash graphs, by default, they will refer to Fusion charts from a third-party website, like in developer forums and everything, because were the category creator in our in the online data visualization space. Third, within our forums, like the community forums, which I talked about, which we were hosting on our own website. Now, community forums at that point in time, each of them would generate a new page. So any post is a new page, and Google would come and index that. So they would see so much of activity happening there, so much of new content. And because it's our users, so they're inevitably doing internal linking. That also added to that SEO juice for us. And then obviously, once they started expanding, more and more people started talking about Fusion charts because we were the early category, we were the category creator and they liked our product. So every time somebody would say, hey, nice charts, what are you using? They'll say, hey, we're using this flash chart from Fusion charts, and they would do a backlink to us. Apart from this, yes, we did so obviously the standard SEO tricks of backlinking, guest posting, and all of that to generate more juice. But that was much later in our journey. Initially, it was mostly organic, very authentic, and helpful content.
Got it. The next question that's coming in, Pallav, is from Mahendra Bair. And he asks, how do you build an India-focused SaaS company that can actually get revenues up to $1 million? I do remember you telling me in one of our discussions that, Srini, for me, demography was not a constraint. I always believed the internet was my playground and my market. But I don't want to color the answer beyond this. So yeah, any thoughts on that? India-focused SaaS.
So again, it depends on your ICP. My ICP is a developer. A developer is not constrained by a country. All developers across the world pretty much use similar set of programming languages, IDs. They're bounded by same philosophy and buying pattern, depending on the budget of the company that they work at. So I'm probably not the right person suited to give you this answer. But based on my experience of investing in about 100+ companies, I would say if you can avoid India as your go-to market, avoid. It's 10x easier to earn $1 than a rupee, even today.
Yeah, and the fact that the dollar is 81 times costlier than
Yes.
a rupee. I'm not even getting into that.
Yeah. So there are inherent reasons for that. A, because we are still, unless you're selling only to startups in India, which is a very different cohort, in which case it's good, or tech first, or tech, like companies who are trying to be tech first. If you're going to traditional companies in India, most of them would not want to take a risk on a startup. Your sales cycle are going to be very, very slow. Your value that you're getting is going to be very, very less. You're going to be stuck in long negotiation cycles. I mean, I can give you a list of 10 such things. Whereas if you sell to a global market, and when I mean global, primarily US, UK, Canada, Netherlands, Germany, and even in some extent, South Korea as well. They are very pro-tech adoption of new technologies. They have divisions which are allowed to take risks, and they like building, they like testing out new things, and they're absolutely okay paying as long as you are adding value, whether in terms of saving time or cost or increasing their productivity or revenue.
Yeah, and as I had mentioned to you earlier, like fundamentally in India, every market is a niche. And in countries like the US, every niche is a market. So you might as well target the US markets or developed markets at large.
Right. That being said, I'm not discouraging people from building for India. By all means, build for India. But I'm just saying, if possible, balance it out or target with US first. So some of the companies say, let's use India as a test bed to refine our product, get all the bugs out before we move to US. That's a valid strategy. But if you're just looking at India as a market, your market size is going to be constrained, especially in B2B SaaS.
Absolutely. Great. I think coming back to, bottom-up growth, we spoke about Fusion Charts, your journey. We spoke about the definition of bottom-up growth. We spoke about how you implemented bottom-up growth in Fusion Charts. I want to, kind of segue to the next, kind of leg of the discussion, where in bottom-up growth, I really wanted to understand, Pallav, that maybe at some level, bottom-up growth happened to you by accident, given the nature of your product and the other constraints around you. You were a school-going student back then. But now, if you have to look back and you have a ton of experience, you also invested in a lot of companies. Is bottom-up growth for everyone, right? What kind of product or business model or channel characteristics are best suited for bottom-up growth?
Sure. So is bottom-up growth for everyone? No, absolutely not. So let's say if your product is not a single user product, and when I mean a single user product, like the guy who came to your website can make a decision saying, hey, I like this product, I'm going to try it. If in that case, that's the first criteria for bottom-up. If it requires 5 more people to collaborate, let's say a IT head and a security head and another 2-3 guys in CFO's office and whatnot, it cannot be bottom-up. He can be a champion or an influencer, but that's not pure bottom-up. That will require a sales motion that you need to do. B, if the onboarding cannot be done within the 15, 20, 30 minutes of that guy visiting your website, where he can try the product and get the first aha moment within 15, 20 minutes, it is probably unlikely candidate for a bottom-up growth. If your onboarding or implementation is a couple of days to a couple of months, you will need again sales motion, sales engineers, all of that, those guys to be involved. Third is on the pricing side. This is again a subjective opinion, but if me as a user can't swipe my card or a corporate card to try that product from a freemium, or even if it's a paid trial, like a 15-day or whatever, vis-a-vis you asking me $10,000 or contact us for a code, which is post-trial, that may not be suitable for a bottom-up growth. So again, single user versus multi-user, difficult to do bottom-up growth. Onboarding, which is your onboarding / implementation. Do I get my aha moment in 30 minutes versus my implementation itself is a few days. I have to contact data engineers or SecOps team or whoever, whichever. That is slightly difficult to do bottom-up growth. And third is again the pricing part of it. If I can swipe my card and get it done right away and get it reimbursed, that's much more conducive. Again, these are what I'm saying is these parameters are more conducive to bottom-up growth. I'm not saying if all of these fail, you cannot have bottom-up, but your approach to bottom-up growth would be slightly more different. And ideally, you would want to have a person involved, whether virtually or in real life, to make your sales motion more efficient.
Great. Following up on that, Pallav, I also wanted to understand, you've given 3 really good qualifying characteristics to decide whether your product fits the bill of bottom-up growth or not. Added to that, do you think that maturity of the product, is there some kind of maturity that is needed in the product before focusing on bottom-up growth? Or you feel that it can be done on day one if these 3 characteristics are satisfied? Or are there some indicators that you look for before making, an investment in bottom-up growth?
Actually, I don't think maturity is a function of it, and I have a reason for it. If you look at most of the bottom-up growth product, like if I look at version of Fusion Charts, I'm super embarrassed. But the reason why I'm embarrassed is, and reason why it picked up, there was a certain segment of people who said, even if it's ugly, which is subjective to me right now, at that point, it looked beautiful to me also. That is why I released it. You will have those early adopters who will still adopt the same way. So bottom, they will adopt. Those early adopters will adopt. They will start using your product. They will help you become mature in every incremental cycle till a point where your most advanced users will start adopting bottom up. So it's a function, it's a DNA, it's your approach of running the company. It is not about the maturity of the product. Every product will keep on getting more and more and more mature as in more you get, as in when you get more users and more feature requests or more use cases that you solve.
Got it. And the next question I want to ask you is around product market fit and bottom up growth, right? Uh, I mean, and this is especially, kind of useful for companies that have just started out, who have probably not hit, let's say, 200K, 250K ARR, and therefore, they have not yet found their product market fit. And there could be multiple definitions of that.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, what I'm trying to say is for companies that have not found their product market fit, and I do know that there are a lot of founders from those companies here, and let's say they start picking product-led growth as a tactic. How do they prioritize their efforts in the early days? Do they look at retention? Do they look at revenue growth? How do they look at this whole funnel for them to really, kind of race towards product market fit through a
Right.
product-led growth tactic?
So I think these are two separate questions, Srini. One is finding product market fit and what it looks like, and then post-market product market fit, how do they look at PLG? So
Sure.
finding product market fit is, again, I mean, that's a very, I mean, the non-scientific answer is you'll feel it in your gut when you find product market fit. The scientific answer or the scientific jargonized answer is when you, for one ICP, you have found that one JTBD which works. So for one ideal customer persona, you found that one job to be done, which they absolutely want the product to be done, and you're doing it very, very well. The non-scientific way to explain this is for that one persona, like in my case, front-end web developers looking to build a dashboard in the current next 3 months, looking to get a charting library. Now I'm able to find that ICP, the JTBD is, I want to make a dashboard so that my product looks good, for which I need a chart. Now that for that person, ICP and for that JTBD, if they are kept on asking me instead of chart, I need a grid and I need a UI component and I need this and I need that. These are different JTBDs. Now, but for the same JTBD, I need a chart. They will keep on asking me more features on the chart, saying that make the chart better, make the chart faster, give me more chart types, as opposed to saying, hey, give me 10 other things like UI and a grid and this and that. So you have to be very clear that, at least in my mind, product market fit is for this one JTBD and for this one ICP, you're going depth and not breadth, because you have solved that problem for them. They are asking it to be solved even better, cheaper, faster, as opposed to saying, hey, can you give me that new JTBD or a different ICP saying a new JTBD? That for me is product market fit. Now from that, going to the PLG part of it, once you've identified that ICP, again, it's like, where do they hang out? Where are they talking about this problem, which is a JTBD? Can you sort of plug in there either through content or a conversation or an advertisement or any of the mediums which is available to you? And you say, hey, we are the right guys to solve for this problem of yours, which exists in your life. It is important to you. It is probably urgent for you as well. And you have the budget to pay for it. And you want to solve it in the next T time, which is a reasonable T time, given the specificity of the problem. So that, based on that, then you go out and sort of start engaging them using any of the channel plus campaign combination that you can do.
Amazing. So basically get your ICP right. And once you get your ICP right, get the JDBD right. And if you get both of these right, at least the technical way of looking at product market fit is, if you get both of these right, then you are on the right path.
And if they keep asking you to go in the depth of that
solution,
instead of saying go broad. So the more depth, like if you're a search company, they want a faster search, not saying, hey, I want an image search. Image search come as a later feature, but can you solve the text search faster? Can you give them more accuracy? Can you give them, I don't know, whatever is relevant for that particular thing? And they're like, we absolutely needed this, and this is what was missing in our journey.
Makes sense. Identify the right set of customers and answer this question around what value are you adding, and that value is over a period of time getting you're looking depth first in that value rather than depth first.
Correct. What problem are you solving? Which is the value that you are adding, and the problem has to be a customer's problem, not your invented problem, which is why it's a job to be done.
Got it. Amazing. Great. On the bottom-up growth part, Pallav, the other question that had come from Anubhav Cha, which was like, now let's come to teams, right? We understood what bottom-up growth is. We understood how you did it for Fusion charts. We understand what kind of products basically fit a bottom-up growth strategy. Now let's come to teams, right? So what is the right kind of team structure? And it could be product, it could be marketing, it could be growth or others, other functions. Do you think should come together, and how should these come together in order to drive a bottom-up growth strategy?
Sure.
Essentially, what kind of team should you be building if you're
Mhm.
looking at a bottom-up growth strategy to raise to 250K ARR?
Got it. So here I'd like to sort of draw two different ways. So for example, in our case, we were marketing fueled, sales fulfilled company. And what I mean by that is all the things that we did on the content side, print ad side, display side, everything. Just like an anecdote, we didn't have a sales guy till we hit 10,000 customer. It was just me and another person who's my co-founder, my father. We would take some sales calls because we had automated most of the things. So our goal was not to like again, given the constraints that I had, at that point in time, because I was doing all the development, I was doing all the website coding and everything, and a very lean team. I think a team of less than 15 people, 15 or 20 people till we hit that milestone. And I was like, how do we avoid any human interaction? Yes, for some of the larger deals, we'll have to involve ourselves and we'll quote them some prices which are more on the enterprise side. Uh, but when we did this, we were extremely marketing fueled. So leads would come to the website, they will download the product. Some of them will most of them will directly use the credit card link to buy online. Some of them will say, hey, we have a larger need that we need for 100 developers. Your max license allows for 10 developers. Can we do something about it? Or we need cross-country licenses. And those are like unique requests. Or some of them will have requests like, is it possible to pay by a PO and more tactical things, which we automated. So in a marketing fueled, sales fulfilled, our focus was to build a great marketing team. So we created a lot of these like different campaigns, channels, experimentation, all of those that we did. So because we did not have a sales team, which we eventually added, the sales team structure was, again, depending on the kind of licenses, marketing would bring those leads, sales would pick those leads, sales would figure out what to do with them. If it's a enterprise, that goes to the enterprise team. If it's a retail, what we call a standard license, which are more tactical questions, they will pick it up. And then there's an account renewal team within the sales team itself. Fairly simple structure. But if your demand gen is driven by sales, which is where you're doing some sort of outbound emails, personalized emails, you can put it under marketing team, you can put it under sales team. Both models are possible, in which case your marketing is providing brand and air cover. So figure out whether your customers, like if you, another important point is, in our case, developers have this tendency to go and look for everything on Google or GitHub or NPM online when they search for a solution. Vis-a-vis, if you're selling to a guy who doesn't typically look online for a solution, you need to do outbound, which is again a bottom-up strategy, which you can do, where you are figuring out these lists from certain places. You're reaching out to them, calling them, LinkedIn or whatever it is, which is also sort of a bottom-up strategy. But in which case, this is slightly more people heavy. And in most of the teams I've seen, these are demand gen teams, which report to sales team as part of the outbound function, in which case the entire lead funnel is owned by the sales team from origination to closure, and marketing sort of provides their cover. And the third is the hybrid, where marketing also generate leads through their promotions and all the things that you can do online and offline. And sales also does their own prospecting, and both of them combine this into a common lead funnel with some qualification criteria between the marketing and sales team. And they sort of commonly own this team, but the core reporting function is under sales. So marketing owns it with respect to what support they need, where do they get the lists, what kind of emails they send out, all of that. So you can think of it, first you have to think, are you going to be a marketing heavy or a sales heavy company, even in demand gen? B, who do you want to give the responsibility of this demand gen outbound prospecting? Mostly I've seen it reports under sales team because those are people heavy. Third, how do you put this qualification criteria if marketing and sales are doing it in a hybrid way?
Got it. Amazing. Amazing clarity, Pallav. I just wanted to spend a minute, Pallav, on a term that you used because I thought that that's necessary to drive home the point. You said marketing driven and sales fulfilled, right? Can you elaborate that for our audience?
So marketing fueled, sales fulfilled.
Sorry,
In our case,
marketing fueled, yeah, sales fulfilled. My bad, yeah.
in our case, so again, our targets were, our ICPs were developers looking for charts. Marketing would go out and figure out wherever developers hang out on the web. Marketing would then promote content around data visualization, charting, creating web applications with great UIs. Developers would read those content, come to our website. Some of them go through our funnel. Some of them go through just our website. Some of them get interested in the demos. Some of them then say, okay, this is useful to me. I'm going to download. Part of them will be relevant, saying that it's useful to me in my current project and I have the budget to pay for it. They will then either fill a sales form. So either they will directly buy online using the credit card option, purchase online, or they will fill a sales form. These leads or the downloads leads, both are our funnel for sales team. But because our download numbers are fairly high, we're talking about 15,000 downloads a month, we would not directly pass it to the sales team. So the most relevant funnel is people who have filled a sales form, because that's the instant lead for the sales team. So that would directly go to the sales team. We will assign them based on what kind of lead is it. Is it an enterprise customer? Is it a commercial/retail customer? But the downloaded one, which is this big pool of 15,000 people who've downloaded, we will keep sort of sending them emails, newsletters through the marketing team, so that they go through the lead funnel and either convert to a customer or come through the sales form. This was our V1. V2, at some point in time, sales team said, hey, we are getting a whole bunch of big customers in this list as well, the downloaded email list. Can we go and get a sort of filter saying that this company, based on this parameter, which we get data from third party based on the email addresses, seem like a big company, or this seems like an important designation, we will go and reach out to them saying, hey, you downloaded our product. What was your experience? And in between that, them downloading and sales reaching, at some point, we also automated an email from my email saying that, which is a 2-line email. Hey, I saw you downloaded Fusion Charts. What are you looking to build today? Is there anything where I can personally help you? And it's going from my personal email, in which case some of the people reply, and I personally reply to most of them. So these were different sort of hooks that we built on the marketing fueled, sales fulfilled.
Got it. Because you're talking about demand generation, sales fulfillment, there's a question by Kiran Kanakadandi. And Kiran asks, based on the 3 criteria that you actually described for PLG, can we assume that bottoms up PLG isn't well suited for typical enterprise SaaS products?
My first instinct is to say no, unless it's extremely simplified for them to adopt. Like the whole concept of PLG is, can I come, try it, get my first aha moment in the first 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then either recommend to my team or go ahead with the either freemium trial or purchasing. In enterprise, just your deployment, onboarding, connecting your different data, getting your existing data into the system, it's a fairly complex process involving different people. Plus, you will need sign-offs from IT teams, security teams, maybe legal teams, probably not as much, CFO teams. Where to be able to run that process effectively in the buyer's arena, you will need assistance from sales engineering or sales people for them to even get the first aha moment. So that does not qualify, in my personal opinion, just as a product-led growth.
Got it. And not that a question, not because a question was answered, but she's also told that excellent session, by the way. So thanks a lot, Kiran, and thanks, Pallav. Moving on, Pallav, there's a question by Anand that's come in. And because again, you spoke about demand generation, about sales and stuff. In your experience, how would you rate these outbound reach outs to US target clients in the order of their probability of generating a successful lead? Calls, emails, LinkedIn reach outs.
It's a combination and a cadence. Each company has to figure out their combination and cadence. Most companies, see, again, when I started out, okay, here's the rule about marketing channels. Every new channel discovered by a marketer gets abused and spammed in the next 6 to 12 months, which means right now people have their email spam filters and a whole bunch of those things. If you just use email, it might not work. If you just use LinkedIn, it might not work. If you just use a call, they're going to block you. So how do you first establish a rapport with that person, whether through a visibility where that before your first email or your first call or your first LinkedIn reach out, they've already seen your brand somewhere, some recall of certain mind. So that doesn't look like a complete cold reach out. Could be again through various mediums, articles, thought leadership thing, podcasts, anything that you can think of. B, once you reach out to them, how do you make it seem personal and non sort of interfering in a way? Nobody likes to get a spam call in the middle of the day saying that, hey, do you want to buy a new ERP? You're like, I'm a 2-person company. Why the heck do I need a ERP? So right targeting, right messaging. Third, what is the designation that you're reaching out to? Now, for that particular designation, so for example, like for developers, they hate getting calls. So you have to understand their psychology. They even hate getting emails. They want to consume information themselves. And then they say, okay, I made the right choice. They typically rely on another better developer or influencer, if you may call it, evangelist, which is a better word, saying that, hey, this guy has recommended, I should go check it out. Vis-a-vis a CFO, he may not be looking at it online. So who's the right guy to be able to tell a CFO what magazines does he read, what online journal does he read, whose recommendation is he looking up to? Where do you build that air cover? And then what's the right mode to reach him at what right time? So all of these are cadences that you need to try for your company. Run some of those sequences till you find, okay, this is working for me, this for this particular cohort of designations. There's no straightforward answer to this.
Absolutely. Even, and if I can just add, it's not just about, the mediums, because as you rightly said, every medium starts getting abused beyond a point. Uh, so I think the trick that is also, can you capture a medium before it goes mainstream? Because once a medium goes mainstream, and I've seen this not just in my previous company, which was a B2C company, but also here, once a channel or a medium goes mainstream, it becomes almost impossible to, kind of win that war without throwing money, right? Uh, but but before it goes mainstream, it really is looking for rapid growth. And at that point in time, if you actually contribute, if you give content to that channel, they are more than happy to even, kind of maybe, kind of overlook certain, violations that you're doing or certain self promotions you're doing. So one thing that I realized, I'm just adding to, your answer, is that identify your ideal customer profile really well. Try to find channels where they hang out, which is not gone mainstream yet, right? That's where you'll get the maximum juice for the least effort. And one of the ways to, kind of judge whether a channel is mainstream or not is see if they are running ads. If they are running ads on their channel, it means that, all the organic growth that they could have squeezed out has been squeezed out. And now they are looking for, they have reached a level of maturity where they feel that they have enough users to make money out of. That's the point where you feel that, then it's a game of, how much more money you can put in. Of course, that is thought that has to go in. There's an excellent article, by the way, on this by a guy called Andrew Chen. It's called The Law of Shitty Click-Throughs. So do, kind of read it also. I learned a lot from that. But great answer, Pallav. Moving on, I also wanted to, kind of touch on a topic which is very developer focused, but because you've built developer tools, this comes from Sandeep Todi, and he asks, how do you tackle customer retention given that developers are always looking for new tools? How did you do that, for Fusion charts? And I'll try to extrapolate this also. How do you also tackle customer retention in a PLG model?
Right. So I think these are two separate sort of questions. So when we talk about customer retention, you have to first understand the nature of your product. So are you selling, like if I have to draw an analogy, are you selling a shirt where the customer wants a new shirt every day and he can try a new shirt and the cost of trying a new shirt is basically nothing? Or are you selling something which is way deeper, like a a stent machine in your heart? Now, I'm not saying Fusion charts was a stent machine in your heart, but those are what we call the mission critical applications. So we would have two sets of customers that I can talk about Fusion charts experience. One is people who use Fusion charts for the internal projects, like, hey, there's a CEO's dashboard coming up for the quarterly board meeting. We'll make the best dashboard out of Fusion charts and we'll use it. And uske baad, if they don't have a need, yeah, that's a involuntary churn. I can't do anything about it because they don't have a need. But the second set of customers, which are the most important customers, were other software companies who would use our products as part of their dashboards, and their entire motive is to sell more of their own software products. And when they're trying to sell the software product to exec, the first thing they open is a dashboard to showcase in their sales demo. And when they showcase this Fusion charts, executives are wowed, not just by the chart, obviously because of the data and the functionality. There we have a tentacle approach, because there, once you have embedded my product in your product, all your video demos already have my charts. Your documentation has my charts. Your sales guy love my charts. So as a product manager or as a developer, you can't just say, hey, tomorrow I'm getting a cheaper or an open source chart, I'm going to throw it out, because everything in the company, which is your training materials, videos, sales guys, all of them have to then sort of agree to it, saying that, hey, why have we replaced it with a worse one? So one thing about retention is, if you're adding value in the customer's entire business value of the customer, how many, like, can you form a tentacle approach where one person cannot make the decision to rip apart the product from the company, which is like the shirt analogy. So if it's something where multiple people are involved, like, which is where, for example, if you have collaboration in your product, hypothetically, which involves multiple people, multiple stakeholders, it becomes more and more difficult to replace. If you have a data moat, it becomes more and more difficult to replace. So whether it's PLG or not, retention is not retention is irrelevant of how the product was adopted. It's a function of how much value are you delivering. Are you able to prove that the customer is getting value, and how many people in the organization are getting value, so that a single guy doesn't have the ability or the authority to go and say, hey, we're going to rip this off and we're going to try something else.
Very interesting. And Pallav, I'll just take a detour here because we've had discussions on defensible modes. And while that's not very PLG focused, I thought that, I will pick your brain again on that because you did touch upon it. One defensible mode you spoke about was, our cross, our different teams, coming together and using the product within that organization. Because then it doesn't become like a, decision of one single person saying we can't use the product, then everybody has to basically come together and that becomes very difficult, right? The second was around data. Any other defensible moat in the B2B SaaS domain that you see? Because that will help not just us, but everyone who's listening in to think deeper about the products that they're building and ensuring that, you build something in such a way that moving out of the product becomes really, really difficult for the organization.
Right. So, I mean, there are more defensible modes, but it's again contextual. So one is integrations, like how many
Yes.
things you integrate with. And especially if you do very weird integrations with their stack, they get very deeply tied to, especially if you're talking about archaic mainframe and exotic old technologies, and where you have these custom bridges with their product, they're like very happy. Or if you do data migration from some other tool to this tool, when they onboarded your tool, and they're like, okay, now we don't want to migrate another one. Another thing is great customer support. People underestimate the value of great customer support. So if you're able to reply to every ticket in less than, I'm just putting a number here, less than 1 hour across the world on a 20, even if not a 24/7, but 24/5 sort of, or 18/5, whatever you want to work out with, people value great customer support. And it's great. That's a great India leverage we still have. They say they feel very, very happy. And especially mid-market companies there, they don't get great customer support. Forget SMBs. So that becomes a great customer support. Then small joys in the product, like the user experience and all. I mean, the thing about user experience in the small joys, a lot of those can get copied at a feature level, but the soul of the product has to be there. There are certain products you inherently feel joy, but again, that's a very opinionated view of making a product. Like some cohort of your customers will like it, some will not like it. But in B2B SaaS, I mean, generally, if you solve the problem well enough, you understand their domain, provide great customer support, have great integrations, and then internally, if you have some data mode, though now that's being looked down upon because most people are talking about interoperable products, ability to export data. So if you don't have the ability to export data, probably at adoption time itself, you already are missing that checklist and you might not get adopted. So think about ways where you're actually helping the customer as opposed to blocking the customer, and do it in a better way.
Got it. Awesome. Awesomely put, aptly put. Help the customer and do it in a better way. But if I had to just summarize, then your data moat, which is probably not as strong today as it was a few years back, customer support as a moat, then integrations as a moat, and building a product which has group consumption, and therefore exiting the product becomes difficult for the company.
Right. And a simple tactic is a lot of SaaS products don't reinforce the value. Like, for example, I'll take again, very cliched example, but Slack sends you an email every week if you're the admin. How many people chatted, how many DMs were sent. So every week you as either the CFO or the admin, you're like, okay, enough people are using, I'm seeing the value in it. So it gets reiterated in your mind. That's the money which I'm spending on this tool is useful. So who are the stakeholders whom you can send this nudge, report, whatever it is, which is basically reinforcing. I'm not saying do it weekly, but even on a monthly basis or whatever it is, they should know that there's enough value being delivered. If you can justify a ROI, even better. But even if it's not a ROI, can you at least, which is the outcome metric, can you show the output metric of the product usage and basically keep reinforcing so that you're also on the top of the mind?
Absolutely. And I think that will also fall into the whole small joys of the product that you spoke about, which go a long way in ensuring that, you're there at the top of the mind of the customer.
Right.
Absolutely. Moving on, Pallav, I know there are a lot of questions coming in, so maybe we'll just spill over, but I just want to ensure that everybody gets the maximum out of the session. So thanks a lot. The other thing I wanted to, kind of talk about with product-led growth was, how do you control quality, right? How do you ensure the quality of leads coming in through PLG motion? And I'll tell you, this is something that we've also faced to a certain extent. But I've heard so many B2B SaaS entrepreneurs come and tell me, hey, you know what? We started with the PLG motion. Uske baad, there was so much of or so many irrelevant leads that we got that we just said that, we need to just control this whole thing and we move to a different, a different GTM motion. Any thoughts on that? Because I think this question that came in was a very relevant question.
Right. By the way, companies who get that problem, that's a good problem to have. With that, we get so
Yeah.
many leads, so you don't know what to do. Most companies die of indigestion as opposed to over digestion. So if I have to give a technical answer, your qualifying is BANT, budget, authority, need, and time. If I have to give you a practical answer, start with the question, who do I not want with as a customer? Then keep adding attributes to that. So in Fusion Charts, for example, we're clear that while we love students using our products, they don't have the budget. While we love open source developer using other product, they will probably go and choose another open source library. So for us to engage with them, obviously we used a different tactic, but for the main product, we said, okay, they're not our potential customers. Similarly, hobbyist, we said, okay, they are using for personal projects. We're happy to give them free license, but we don't want to get him to the sales cycle. So over a span of time, we created this list starting with a question of who is not our customer as opposed to who is our customer. And then you keep on adding those attributes to that. And then marketing and sales sort of combine together. So marketing then knows what kind of campaigns not to run, how not to invite. Also on the web, then we started adding some filters, like in the form, you go a little bit creative to be able to say, are you going to buy? Are you not going to buy, like corporate email versus personal email? You start putting those filters out. Then you use some lookup databases, like I think we used, I don't know the exact tool, but think of it as like full contact or one of those clear bit sort of a thing. For every email, we'll get these bunch of information, some sales automation out there. So at some point in time, so I'm not saying it will be 100% accurate. It will not even be 100% accurate at the end. Sales will still get some leads which they will be like, it's non-qualified, why are we getting this? And that constant battle between sales and marketing, in my opinion, is good because it pushes both the teams to do better. Sales will constantly tell marketing will keep improving that entire outreach programs or the branding and marketing programs, which leads to better cost management as well and some newer experiments. And for sales, the more they push for this, marketing gets more leads and they're able to convert more. So there's no 100% guarantee that you will get only qualified leads, but can you come close to a number where sales is like, okay, this 10-20% I'm okay spending time, but the other 80-90% is still very good and we're able to hit our quotas.
Very nice. So fundamentally the power of saying no and therefore staying focused.
Yes, what kind of customers do we not want, and keep expanding that list.
Keep expanding that list. Awesome. The next question was, we've spoken about PLG, bottom-up growth. We've spoken about, your ICP. How do you implement bottom-up growth? What are the traits? How do you even, kind of maintain quality there? The teams you have to build. After all of this comes measurement, right? So how do you measure the success of sales teams in these early days, right? When you're doing PLG, was it wins? Was it demos? Was it revenue? Was it user engagement? And therefore, how do you run your sales team reviews?
Got it. So again, it depends on the DNA. So we were marketing fueled, sales fulfilled. So our sales team were measured on two simple things: your closure rate and average price per sale. Again, this for the enterprise because there we had a call us for a quote. For the normal team, which is what I call the commercial and the retail team, your closure rate, very simple. You're getting X leads, how many you're closing? Very simple as that. But if the sales team has a demand gen team where they're creating their they're themselves going creating those leads, those teams should be measured first in terms of number of leads generated or demos created, but B, also some downstream metric of what percentage of those were converted. Like what is the total revenue impact of that? Because otherwise, if they keep on bringing non-qualified leads, that's going to impact your overall conversion for your AE or downstream as well. So depending on your setup, my first advice is keep metrics very, very simple in early stage. You don't have to go to very extensive. It looks very fancy to say, hey, we are tracking 10 metrics. If you have 2 sales guy, all you need to know is how many leads are we getting, how many are converting, what's our ACV, if you have a dynamic ACV, and then you keep on improving. Now, if you're saying, hey, we have a very, like if you have an 80% conversion rate, which is very, very unreal, then you're like, okay, we are not focusing more on, or we can increase the number of leads at the top of the funnel, widen the ICP criteria, not the ICP criteria, but sort of the qualifying criteria. And it's okay to hit that 20-25% conversion rate. Again, different industries have different benchmarks. So you look at what you can do more, what's in control, what's not in control, and then you optimize for that. But keep initial metrics simple and keep layering as and when you expand the team. Sales team structure we already talked about. Reviews, again, initially it's very simple. I mean, our reviews would be, hey, these are number of leads we got, these are our high value leads, have we prioritized them, or have we quoted the right price to them, which is where we had internal price calculator, because again, some part of our most part of our customers were non listed price quotes, at least from the website. So there, are we losing money on the table? And Friday, there would be a sales team meeting, lead by lead. Each team lead would go through their sales team lead, saying what are the open deals, what can we do to expedite it. If it needs any work from engineering or development, engineering or product side, they will check with them. Is there anything we can do? If there's a pricing or a discount issue, the sales team lead will say, okay, we can do that. Most of that is also done on real time, but essentially it's a health check on the sales team to be able to say, can we help you expedite any of those?
Got it. And great. So we've gone through the entire funnel, right? Right from how do you define your ICP for a PLG motion, to how do you get leads, to how do you work with those leads, to how do you measure success.
Right.
So now I just want to understand, do you think companies can experiment with both sales-led and PLG motions? Or do you feel that, they should stick to one?
So once you grow, you can have both twin engines running. I'm just thinking at initial day, in the initial days, is it possible to do both? I mean, you can, it again depends on what setup do you have. Like, I'm just thinking out aloud here, spitballing sort of. If it's one of the co-founder or senior guys, a marketing guy, another guy is sales, third is the product/tech, then yeah, you have three sort of top level firepower and the bandwidth to be able to do. But if you have only one guy and you're trying to split across these two things, will it be a case of misplaced bandwidth, or over prioritizing one over other without giving them their due credit and the time? My approach would be at least make one assumption saying that, hey, we are a PLG company, so we are going to go with marketing first and see if it works out well, then latch on to sales later for your larger deals. If it's not working, then go through the ABM, which is a sales way, see if that's working. But try to avoid the temptation to do both if bandwidth is limited.
Got it.
But again, this is not from experience, this is just from me spitballing. So take it with a pound of salt, as you say, Srini.
There's one question coming from Puneet Lamba, and I'll actually have to stop. This will probably be the last question because you're anyways, kind of hit the 9:30 p.m. mark IST. So Puneet asks, any comments on how to leverage bottoms up GTM for an integration/data sharing heavy product? And he also adds the point that knowing that top-down sales cycles are typically very slow in today's climate.
Again, I have to understand the product ICP and JTBD to be able to comment on it, because I don't know what's the integration and data sharing product. But if I'm sort of understanding it correct, if it's something like a Zapier or a IFTTT, both of them did bottoms up marketing saying, hey, we help you move your data from point A to point B by going to the lowest individual atomic user, which is the prosumer. IFTT, even a consumer, Zapier to a prosumer, and then they said, okay, we can do it for your enterprise. But if it's something which is moving data loads from one data warehouse to another, in which case you can do not exactly a PLG, but you can sort of do at least the campaigns for a data engineer, who's probably the most critical part of this ICP, and at least help him simulate this using demos or your documentation or your API, where then he gets in touch with your inside sales team or your solutions engineer, and where you can do a demo. That's not exactly fully a PLG because of the nature of the product requires some amount of onboarding and implementation. But again, because I don't fully understand the context of the product, hard for me to give a very informed opinion here right now.
Got it. There are more questions coming in, Pallav, but I'll have to actually, draw the line here, because there's a small segment that we have, which I think is very useful, and it's a favorite segment of mine, which is called rapid fire, where I ask you some questions and you don't have to think twice before answering, right?
Sure.
I want to actually, kind of start with that segment before we, kind of call it quits here. So it's very simple. I'll ask you, 5 to 6 questions without thinking twice, just answer them.
Sure.
Typically, the questions are structured in such a way that you'll have a 1-word or 2-word answer, but it's also very, very, kind of linked to the entire, SaaS and global GTM motion. So can I get started?
Sure, let's do it.
If you had to repeat your journey today, what is that one thing you think you would do differently?
I would build more products for the same ICP as opposed to going after 3 or 4 different ICPs, which I went after in the journey.
And if you had to repeat your journey again today, what is that one thing you feel you did really well that you would want to repeat?
Be very, very close to customers.
Got it. Biggest advice to founders selling into the US?
Start very early, do a polished product, make your website look great, have good copywriting skills, and watch a lot of Netflix US series so that you get the cultural context.
Oh, that's a last point is amazing. If you had to pick one market to sell into, what would that be?
US.
And one idea that is basically, kind of consuming all your time right now. Any great thesis or idea or domain that you feel will really blow up and is the right thing to pick up right now?
How much of CRUD SaaS will be automated by AI driven SaaS, and how many existing SaaS products will either transition or die a slow death because they could not transition to AI enabled, if not AI first.
Oh, awesome. What are you reading right now?
Actually, I don't read one book at a time, so I switch between 3, 4. So right now it's a combination of finite and infinite games. Second book is Who, Not How. The third one is Why Marketeers Tell Stories by Seth Godin.
Awesome. And I'll just add one more thing here. When I actually met in my initial days of interacting with Pallav, he is a master in product positioning, and I have tried to seek guidance from him on that. There was one book he told me, which I think everybody here who's building B2B SaaS should read, which is Play Bigger, right? That's an amazing book. And because we are talking about books and what he's reading, that was one recommendation that he had given me, and I can't thank him enough for that. That's something I want to pass on to all the people listening into this discussion.
Actually, on the positioning one, there's another one by April Dunford. I'm forgetting the name
Okay.
right now, but just search April Dunford book on positioning. That's another good one.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, that is also added to my list now. But we are 7 minutes past time. Pallav, thanks a lot for taking time out. It's been an amazing discussion. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, that every time I interact with you, I go back reinvigorated. I go back slightly more illuminated. I go back with a lot of more motivation and hunger. And this discussion has actually, been the same for me. And I'm sure everybody who's listening in today is feeling the same. All of us are feeling energized. So thanks a lot for doing this. Really appreciate it, man.
Glad to be here, and this was super fun. Most of these learnings have been from 2 decades of shitload of failures.
And a lot of successes also, which you don't want to mention. You're being humble here, but that's okay. I'll fill in for that. Thank you, Pallav.
Thank you, Shani.